This year, 31 AD, Emperor Tiberius finally takes a stand against the tyrannical commander of the Praetorian Guard, SEJANUS. Jesus is rumored to have performed additional miracles, these being more extravagant than the prior, although those who oppose him are beginning to get much more aggressive. Welcome to the Yearly Histories, where we will highlight the major events that take place in the Common Era, year by year. Last year, we saw John the Baptist being executed on the order of Herod Antipas, Jesus continuing his preaching, and the Uaji tribes consolidating themselves as the Kashan Empire under the leadership of Kujula Kadphises. By this time, Emperor Tiberius has grown entirely suspicious of Sejanus's devious schemes. Tiberius, still residing in his villa on the island of Capri in semi-retirement, has recently received a letter from his sister-in-law Antonia. The written message details that Sejanus has been plotting to kill the emperor's grandson Gaius, the third son of Germanicus and Agrippina the Elder. Sejanus has pushed the limits of his power too far at last, and backed Emperor Tiberius into a corner where he can no longer ignore the Praetorian prefect's bold machinations. Without warning, Tiberius summons Gaius to Capri. A month later, Sejanus travels to Rome, where he is to be named this year's consul alongside Tiberius himself. In May, Tiberius unexpectedly resigns from his tenure as consul and orders Sejanus to do the same, though he informs him that he will be compensated with the office of tribune. Sejanus is now beginning to get suspicious and supposedly starts a conspiracy to topple Tiberius and name his young grandson Tiberius Gemellus as emperor, while he plans on pulling the strings from the background. Tiberius receives word of this scheme and decides the time has come to bring this affair to an end. The emperor summons Naevius Sutorius Macro to his villa and hands him a commission to replace Sejanus as the Praetorian prefect, or commander of the Praetorian Guard, along with a letter to be handed to the Senate denouncing Sejanus as a traitor. Macro is the current Praefectus Vigilum, also known as the prefect of the Vigiles, the Roman fire brigade and night watch, so he's quite qualified. As the days pass and Macro makes his journey to Rome, Tiberius waits anxiously for a message detailing the outcome of the coup. Macro arrives in October and passes the instructions to the necessary parties. He greets Sejanus at the Temple of Apollo on the Palatine, where the Senate is meeting, and informs him that Tiberius intends to finally grant him his office as tribune. Once in the temple, the plan is set in motion as Tiberius's letter to the Senate is being read aloud. At the end of the letter, the order comes that Sejanus is to be seized as senators begin to denounce him one by one. Sejanus is taken by the present guards and handed over to the Vigiles, whom imprison him. Later that evening, Sejanus is strangled to death and his body is dumped in public, where an enraged mob abuses the corpse of the hated official. Rioting and looting break out as the mob moves to lynch associates and family members of Sejanus. Before his widow commits suicide, she sends a letter to Tiberius, revealing the plot between Sejanus and Livilla against his son Drusus, which resulted in his death by poison in 23 AD. Livilla, in disgrace, stars herself to death on the order of her mother, Antonia. The chaos and retribution rages on in Rome as the year ends there. By this time, the lines between the followers of Jesus and other Jewish sects have become much more rigid, yet opinions about him from the outside seem divided. Quote, "Not every Pharisee or leader of a local synagogue opposed Jesus, but his claim to superior spiritual authority naturally irritated the existing leadership more than anyone else. Only the downtrodden and the outcasts had responded enthusiastically to Jesus' mission, probably because he held out a promise that their lowly status in this life would not prevent their salvation after death." Unquote. Jesus suddenly receives a warning from several sympathetic Pharisees that Herod Antipas intends to have him killed, much like he did to John the Baptist. Jesus chooses to leave Herod's territory, supposedly not out of fear, but rather that he feels his mission in Galilee has been accomplished. He begins a journey south with his disciples towards Jerusalem to face the Sadducees and the imperial power of Rome, where hostile reception awaits him. The mysterious divine acts that Jesus has been gaining a reputation for continue this year. While surrounded by a crowd of thousands gathered to witness his healing of the sick, he reportedly produces thousands of morsels of bread and fish out of 5 loaves and 2 fish. Later, on the Sea of Galilee, Jesus' disciples claimed to see him walking on water in the middle of a storm, which subsided once Jesus got on the boat. Another meteorological miracle is reported as Jesus and the disciples are once again in a boat crossing the Sea of Galilee in the middle of a storm. This one violent enough to frighten the disciples and lead them to request help from Jesus. Quote, "He then rebuked the wind and said to the sea, 'Peace, be still.' Then the wind ceased, and there was a dead calm. He said to them, 'Why are you afraid? Have you still no faith?' And they were filled with great awe and said to one another, 'Who then is this, that even the wind and sea obey him?'" Unquote. Now it's time for In Memoriam, where we look back on the lives of prominent figures who died in the year. Lucius Aelius Sejanus was a powerful Roman statesman who rose to prominence as the prefect of the Praetorian Guard under Emperor Tiberius. He was appointed to this position as one of Tiberius's first acts as emperor, as they shared a close relationship, and Tiberius believed Sejanus to be quite capable. Sejanus quickly gained strong influence by reorganizing the Guard and consolidating its power in Rome, effectively making it a key instrument of political control. Eventually, he became the de facto ruler of Rome when the emperor withdrew to Caprae. However, Sejanus' ambition led him to plot against Tiberius and eliminate rivals, including members of the imperial family. His schemes were eventually uncovered, and Tiberius finally turned on him, orchestrating his downfall through a dramatic public arrest. Sejanus was executed along with his supporters, and his family was brutally punished, marking the end of his once formidable influence on Roman politics. Velleius Paterculus was a Roman historian and soldier who served as a cavalry officer and later as a praetor under Emperor Tiberius. He authored a concise historical work, Compendium of Roman History, which spans from the early myths of Rome to his contemporary period, offering a favorable portrayal of the emperor and his family. We will leave this year, 31 AD, with Sejanus being executed on the order of Emperor Tiberius, followed by a manhunt for his supporters, and Jesus leaving Galilee to begin a journey south. Time will tell what is to become of him when he arrives. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to be notified when the next iteration of the yearly histories will be released. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next year in 32 AD to continue the fascinating stories of the world of antiquity and cover its major events.